Hey everyone, welcome back to Casual Cooking Culture. Today we're going to be cooking up a Szechuan classic, Mapo Tofu. Now this is one of the most famous dishes in all of China. Its reach is so vast that even Japan has taken it and made it its own creation. Szechuan cooking is a staple of Chinese cooking, and this is one of the top 5 or 10 most common dishes. If you go to a restaurant in China, most likely, as long as it's not a specialty restaurant, this dish will be there. So we're going to start by prepping our aromatics. We have 6 slices of ginger, about ½ inch, ¼ inch thick, 2 cloves of garlic, and then 4 green onions. So let's start by separating the green from the white part of the scallions. So we're just going to chop these up nice and fine. All right, so just take those green onion pieces, set them aside. Now we'll slice up the whites of the onions right here. So we're just gonna want to toss away the roots because who wants to eat onion roots? So now set aside the whites of your scallions. Then we're going to finely mince the ginger. So for this, I'm just going to cut it into about matchstick size pieces and then dice them up into very fine dice thing. Not very good with my terminology. All right, so I cleared off the board because it was getting a little crowded in there, but now I'm gonna chop up the garlic. So now that we've prepped our aromatics, we're going to cut this tofu into about 1 inch by 1 inch squares, maybe a little smaller. So just nice slice in half. I feel like I'm filleting a fish. Then cut it into cubes. All right, so now we're going to chop up ½ tablespoon of fermented black beans. Oh my gosh, this looks insanely appetizing. Let's smell it. That's fine. That's fine. It'll taste good. That's all that matters. So we're gonna take that. I'm covered in nasty fermented black bean juice. I'm sure this will come right out. I'm not gonna smell like an old Chinese restaurant all day. All right, so just give these a rough chop. So just, we're about to prep the we have some Doubanjiang, which is a Chinese long red bean. The one I have is pre-chopped, but if yours is whole, just give it a rough chop in the same manner. Just nice little, cut it into bite-sized pieces. Probably don't want giant chunks of fermented black bean in your mouth. Honestly, it's not that bad. It's a little bad. But I've made this dish multiple times before, and it's always delicious, so it'll be fine. All right, so you're gonna bring a pot of water to a boil, drop in your tofu, add a little bit of salt, and let that boil for 1 minute. All right, so it's been a minute. We're gonna take this over the sink and strain out the tofu. Make sure you turn off your heater, or else it yells at you. So we're just letting the last of the water drain while we take the next step. These are Szechuan peppercorns, essential to Szechuan cooking. Really, really nice flavor. So we're gonna take about ½ tablespoon, I'm gonna do a little more, I really like the flavor, of Szechuan peppercorns. And we're just gonna toast those for a minute or two. But once those start getting a little steamy and aromatic, that's when they're done. Now that your peppercorns are toasted, you're gonna take them and put them into a pestle and mortar. If my lovely assistant could take these and put it in the big pan. Oh, Hans! So you're just gonna grind this until they're about as ground as you can get them. You want it as fine as possible. So you're just gonna, I don't know what side this is supposed to use. I'm gonna go with this one. So you're just gonna grind it. If you're a normal human being and don't have a pestle and mortar at home, you probably don't have Szechuan peppercorns, so this doesn't matter. But if you have a coffee grinder that you don't use for coffee, that'll work too. But you don't want to use coffee in your spice grinder because it'll make all your spices taste like coffee. And if that's what you're about, that's fine, but not me. So once you get it to a nice finely ground powder, about that is ready, so you can set that aside. And now let's make the cornstarch slurry. So the cornstarch slurry is going to require 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. This is a half tablespoon, so I'm doing 2. To 2.5 tablespoons of water. So with your water and your cornstarch, you're just gonna mix it up until it's liquidy, which is very hard to do with water and cornstarch. So this is gonna be used to thicken up the sauce on the Mapo Tofu. And now with that, we're ready to assemble everything in the pan. Almost there. Now to a pan, you're going to add 100 grams of beef or pork. Pork is more traditional, but I have beef, so I'm using beef. And then to the beef, you're going to add about a half a teaspoon of sesame oil. So I'm just gonna mix the sesame oil. You can really do this in a bowl, but there's enough dishes. So I'm just doing it in the pan, get it nice and mixed. So you wanna cook the beef until it's brown and crispy, which it is just about, and then you're going to separate the beef and add the rest of the ingredients. So now that it's cooked, just remove and set aside. Ignore your induction cooker yelling at you. Leave as much of the juice in as you can, because that's the nice fat and oil you want to cook everything else in. Now, add a tablespoon of cooking oil. I'm using, I think this is canola, just something neutral. Get that hot. All right, so add 1 tablespoon, 1.5 tablespoons of your red broad bean paste, Doubanjiang. So just let that fry for a minute. And then you want to add in your chopped black beans. And also the whites of your scallions and your ginger. This is about to smell super good. Oh, whoops. Forgot the ginger, the garlic, no problem. This induction cooker gets really hot. You don't want to fry it this hot, but it'll still be great. Then drop in your Szechuan pepper. Give that a nice stir. And then we're going to keep it from burning, because now it's time to add your chicken stock. So I'm just gonna do half at first. All right, so now that the broth is boiling, I just wanted to, this got a little hot. So now add the rest of it. We're adding about 400 milliliters. Now, some people use water. This is a little bit of a unauthentic recipe, but I think it tastes a little bit better. I used dashi broth instead of water, which is a Japanese fish broth. You can use chicken stock or just water. It'll taste good regardless. So we're gonna bring that up to a boil and slide in the tofu. Now that your broth and spice mixture is coming to a boil, we're going to gently slide in the tofu. Gently slide in the tofu. For 2 reasons. 1, you don't want to break it, and 2, you don't want to splash boiling hot, spicy water on your face. Take that. Cook it for a little bit. So, one thing I almost forgot, the beef. So also slide the beef in there, nice and smooth. I'm covered in beef juice. All right, and then you're also gonna add in 1 tablespoon of light soy sauce. We have Golden Label Superior light soy sauce. I'm not actually gonna measure it because I'm gonna eyeball it, and that was a bad choice. So give that a nice stir and let simmer for 7 minutes. Now that the tofu has been cooking for about 7-8 minutes, you're gonna take your cornstarch slurry, just stir it up just to make sure you get all the stuff because it will have settled. Then you're gonna just add about half of it to it. And then stir it around to thicken the sauce. So once all of that's incorporated, just pour in the rest. Give it a stir. At this point, you have nice, thick, delicious, spicy Mapo Tofu. I'm butchering every Chinese pronunciation in this video. But turn off the heat, give it a stir, keep it from burning, and there you go. Now, this is completely done, but it could, not be salty enough, not be spicy enough, so there's a couple options. You can add pepper flake to it to make it more spicy. Traditionally, it'd be a Szechuan Chinese pepper flake, but if you don't have that, that's fine. But we have a secret Chinese ingredient that makes every dish taste better. Monosodium glutamate, also known as MSG. Now, a lot of people freak out about MSG, but truth be told, it's really not bad for you if you don't have issues with sodium. This is the same stuff that's on like kelp when you eat Japanese food with the seaweed and stuff. So if you can eat that, you can eat this. So just give a nice little sprinkle of MSG to your tofu. Give it a stir. And with that, you're ready to eat. All right, so now to eat. You can eat this on its own, but it's too spicy for me. So I steamed up some rice before the video started, and I'm just gonna take some of that nice, delicious rice. So on top of your rice, just spoon over your tofu. Forgot one thing. Gotta have those green onions. Let's give this a taste. The hot, little. Great. Perfect amount of spice. Let me finish. It's salty, spicy, but not too spicy. I'm not dying or anything. It's just great. This is a delicious dish. This is easily one of my favorite dishes. I understand why it is in the top 10 in Szechuan cooking. So, thanks for tuning in. If there's something you'd like us to do in the next video, let us know in the comment section down below. And you know the whole deal, like, comment, subscribe. Cheers. Whoops.